Check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1. Check 2. Check 3. Check 4. Check 5. Check 6. Check 7. Check 8. Check 9.
good?
No, I hit it on the way out of the.
Oh,
thing.
Go ahead, we're live.
yeah, we're good.
All right, good morning, and welcome to the August 9th Anthony Wayne Board of Education meeting. We will call this meeting to order with a roll call. Mrs. Johnson?
Where's the list? Mr. Baden?
Here.
Mrs. Brent? Here. Mrs. Gwynn?
Here.
Mr. Lutz?
Here.
Mrs. Ryan?
Here.
You please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item C, at this point, will you recognize any visitors that we have today for any comments, any public comments for items on today's agenda? If you'd like to make a comment. I know Andrew, welcome. And just want to say hi. Welcome. And
Calzone, you want to speak? You can go ahead if you want. Well, actually, there are. In my section, if you look at superintendent section, there's information about COVID-19, so you could speak at this time if you'd like. Okay.
I'm requesting that you end all those. Did you read what the CDC posted on July 21st of 2021 about the PCR test that was used to create this case-demic? They are withdrawing their request to the FDA for emergency use. They will stop using the test everywhere by December 31st of 2021. The reason? The test that they've been using is unable to distinguish the difference between COVID-19 and the flu. They should stop using this test now. Did you ever hear people ask last year what happened to the flu? It was here, just like it always has been. Except for, of all the cases of this supposed COVID, how many of them were the flu? Do you understand what this means? That the restrictions should be stopped immediately. COVID was at worst a bad flu season, but now we don't even know how many of those were not even COVID. So I want you to be the leader in doing what's right for our kids. You are a school board that is tasked with running the school. You are not the health board. The health of our children is up to us. Mask efficacy is in question for sure, but the harms of masks is documented well, and you cannot continue to hold the education of our children out like a carrot only if we agree to harm our children by masking them. I realize right now that your statement is that masks are optional, and I hope it stays that way, but I'm a little bit leery based on what I've heard. If anyone wants to wear a mask and they believe it protects them, that's up to them. However, it is not your concern if another one doesn't want to wear it. The same argument could hold for vaccines as well. If your vaccine protects you, why are you worried about anyone else? My child will not be wearing a mask this school year. Never, ever again. My child gets headaches, dizziness, trouble concentrating, depression, and acne from wearing a mask. My child was sick more last year from that mask than any other time in her life. The group of Florida parents proved it by taking their kids' masks after one day and sending them to a lab to have them tested. Awful stuff in there. We know there's been an increase in high school suicides. Even the CDC director, Robert Redfield, stated that we are seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now than deaths from COVID. The decision last year from Judge Ronald Forstafel of the Ashland County Court of Common Pleas is further evidence that it grants no authority to the Director of Ohio Department of Health to issue and enforce mandatory mask orders, since there is no stated or implied authority in RC 3701.13, which authorizes any action to prevent the spread of contagious disease. The court order is further evidence that permits Ohio Ohio agencies to overregulate Ohioans over an extended period of time. As Senator Rand Paul said on August 4th, the pores of every cloth mask are bigger than the virus. They do not work. Even Dr. Falsey, as I like to call him, documented in his personal emails that masks don't work on February 5th, 2020. He wrote in an email to Sylvia Burwell, quote, "Masks are really for infected people to prevent them from spreading infection to people who are not infected, rather than protecting uninfected people from acquiring infection. The typical mask you buy at the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out virus, which is small enough to pass through the material," end quote. And according to Title III, Regulation 28 of the Code of Federal Regulations 36104, your business serves the public and therefore must abide by all state and federal laws, not guidance, not regulations. No business shall supersede the law. No governor's order, health order, emergency, or pandemic supersedes the constitutionality of protected rights. It also prohibits the denial of participation. It states that unless I have been individually assessed as a threat, you may not exclude me from the same or equal services as others. That means you cannot blanketly call all students threats and treat them differently based on whether or not they wear a mask or whether or not they receive a vaccine. This isn't going to be like blacks eat over there. We're better than this. Mr. Fritz made the comment to me on Thursday morning on 8/4 that you have to follow the CDC guidelines. And I'm here to tell you, you do not have to follow the CDC guidelines. And you should know that you don't. They are unelected bureaucrats that can merely suggest or recommend. In case you weren't aware, the CDC is part of the executive branch of government, and they have zero authority or jurisdiction here. As many of you have learned in the past 2 years, the federal government does not hold much power over the jurisdiction of other states. For example, California had some of the strictest COVID restrictions. However, the people got together and said enough is enough. And on June 11th of 2020, they no longer had mandatory masks in Orange County. Kristi Neem, the governor of South Dakota, never felt the need to lock down her state. Other examples are Arkansas, Iowa, Florida, and Texas. They've all passed laws to prevent cities, counties, and school districts from mandating masks because they have followed the data and the science, which you should be doing. If the states were legally required to follow federal Department of Health and CDC guidelines, then they wouldn't be able to do these things. Our local parents won a lawsuit last fall against the Department of Health and got their kids back into private schools. Anthony Wayne should have done the same, and that's why my child didn't go to this school last year, because I pulled her out, because you made the wrong decision last year. We need some of the good old-fashioned common sense here and do what's best for the children in this district. Open the schools without the restrictions. None of this social distancing and plexiglass and you sit over here and you sit over there. And masks and social distancing have been proven to do nothing but harm our kids. And I want you to fulfill your oath to the Constitution, which you all took that oath, and stop infringing on our unalienable rights, and get back to focusing on the academics of the school. It's a little ditty from Prather 2022. It's called They Said. It doesn't spread from person to person, and then they said it does. They said you don't have to wear a mask in 14 days to flatten the curve, and then they said you do need to wear a mask. Then they said it's only carried in droplets, and then they said it's airborne. And then they said Walmart and Home Depot are okay, but your churches are not. Then they said it won't spread during protests, but it will spread during rallies. Then they said don't trust Trump's vaccine, and then they said a natural immunity doesn't last. Then they said you gotta trust Biden's vaccine. Then they said if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. Then they said if you're vaccinated, you won't spread COVID. Then they said vaccinated people can catch COVID, but we're not counting those. Then they said you have to wear a mask again because you can spread it. What are they gonna say tomorrow? And why should we believe them?
I'm sorry? You've been served. Served? What do you mean by being served?
With an affidavit.
Affidavit, okay.
Sorry, I made 6 copies.
It's okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Is there any other items in the?
No,
Public.
not at this time.
No, this time. All right. So we'll move on to item 2. Board of Education approval of the educational minutes from the last meeting. Is there any comments or corrections, additions?
No, I'll move to approve the minutes of
I'll second.
our June 20th meeting.
Pam and Jana. Mrs. Johnson, if you call the roll.
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to item 3. Mrs. Johnson with the treasurer's report.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is to approve the monthly financials for June and July. I would like to point out the very last report listed is something new. And I shouldn't say it's a new requirement, however, it's being the law is being interpreted that it should have been being disclosed to Board of Education's, and then once the board approves the report, it will go on to, I have to file it with the Ohio Department of Education and the auditor's office. It just lists, we have investments per our investment policy, and this is just the commercial paper and banker's acceptance notes that we had invested for last fiscal year. So it's something that we'll only approve once a month with our July financials. And it's just, like I said, a difference of interpretation. All of a sudden, the auditors have noticed that this hasn't been being reported, so now to correct the issue, and we haven't been audited yet, so I feel like we're going to be okay here. But it's just one of those things that it's being interpreted a little differently, so in order to please everyone, we will have the board approve this report, and then I will file it where it's needed to be filed. Under item B is to approve the renewal with Kadoravic LP LLC. He serves as our employee risk claim representative for our workers' compensation claims. We've been with him for about 8 years, and he continues to keep his cost at the $3,300. Under item C is the list of federal programs and grants that we have been awarded so far this year. I'll point out that Title 4A used to be the 599 code, so it's nothing new. They just changed the fund from a 599 to an 854. And then, just as a reminder, the Title 3 and IDEA early preschool, those are both consortium grants. Our Title 3 is with Perrysburg Schools, and the preschool is with the ESC of Lake Erie West. So we've had those as well. Just wanted to point those out as a reminder. And then you'll see we are approving ESSER 3 allocation. And this is the latest allocation that we have been awarded. Under item D is our cyber insurance. And we had this last year, and as you know, we had a lot of fraud, but I was rather surprised to see our price increase, nearly $18,000 for the same amount of coverage. This wasn't something that I had included with our original insurance renewal because it was significantly less last year, so it fell under that price. But when I saw this came in at $18,000 higher, I thought it would be good if we put that on the board agenda. So again, it's just our cyber insurance policy. There's no change in the coverage we've had. But I did feel that the board needed to approve this. And it's basically due to all the fraud cases that went on, especially through the Bureau and the unemployment cases and everything. So it just has a domino effect when things like that happen. So
How many years have we had this coverage? Was last year the first?
last year was our first year that we've had it.
Did you have an opportunity to see if it would be less with anybody else, or you?
We had 3 different quotes, and this was the less
Okay.
of the 3. So, and I suppose we don't have to have it, but I
would
think,
suggest, yeah,
yes.
Yes, I think we
Yes, I mean, there are some districts that did choose to opt out or change their coverage, but I just didn't feel that that was the right decision for us. So I would like the board to approve that. And then the last item is a little bit of a housekeeping item, mainly when I look at the audit report. But, so for fiscal year '20, our food service ended with a significant cash balance because we had no school for the few months. And so I had advanced money to the fund, and then they received some COVID dollars that came in. And I had the board approve part of the amount that they couldn't pay back to the general fund as a transfer then. So that money would not have had to be returned. But then when they got their COVID dollars, I felt it was appropriate that we return those funds to the general fund. And when I was looking for something else in the board minutes, I realized that I could not find where I had that approved to have the board return it. So it's more of a housekeeping, but it's just that money that was advanced from fiscal year '20 was returned to the general fund. And in order to prevent any questions from the auditors, I would like to have the board approve that. So, and that is all I have. The only other thing is I did share that we would need to I need to have an alternate for Capital Conference. I know both Pam and Jeff had expressed interest in attending. Pam's the delegate, so if Jeff, you would be willing to be the alternate, I could list you if you're good with that.
Yep.
Okay. And that is all I have.
Carrie, excuse me, what's the total we've received in ESSER funds?
All ESSER funds? Our first round of ESSER 1 was around 310,000. I'm trying to remember we had that, and then we had the CFR, COVID relief. ESSER 2 was around 1.3 million. And then ESSER 3 right now was initially supposed to be over 3 million, but you can see our substantial approval date. This is the allocation in the CCIP at this time, which is the 2.7 million. And then the Corona relief funds that we received, one of those was 310, one of them was like 305, 307. So that's why
I'll move to,
Any other questions, or?
no, I was just going to move to approve
Okay.
as presented.
I'll second.
Troy and Vicky. Mrs. Johnson, call the roll.
Mr. Baden,
Yes.
Mrs. Sprint,
Yes?
Mrs. Gwynn,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, Dr. Fritz, if you want to,
Yes,
the
thank you.
superintendent reports.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that we have the start of the school obviously coming up, and we have registration days that will start as of tomorrow with K-4, 5 through 12 on Wednesday. We have our teacher work day on Friday, and our professional development day will be on Monday. We're going to do a little bit different this year. We're going to do a video, or I'm going to do a video to the staff so we can have more PD time, so they can stay in their buildings, get their PD time done on that day, and get ready for the school year starting on Wednesday of next week, okay? Just wanted to share that with you. When we look at enrollment, we are up slightly. I don't want to get into the numbers right now because we see at this time of year, every year, where we're getting withdrawals as well from people who've moved out of the district or out of state and those types of things happening. So we have a little bit of people coming in now. We had most of those people that were coming into the district already register, but we'll have a little bit of trickling in right now. We did have to hire a new staff member at Waterville to help offset the enrollment increases there that we had over the summer. I don't expect any new enrollment as of right now. We are looking for a science position at the high school to fill a long-term leave that we're going to have. Other than that, we are fully staffed. We do have, as we've talked about, using some of the federal money that's coming in for intervention. and other programs. We have hired additional staff that's temporary while those funds exist to help with our student learning for this next year. We have orientation. We had OPSI orientation this last week. We had a group in here of bus drivers, which was nice to see, food service staff, custodians, secretarial staff, and so forth. Great group of people, special education aides and other aides as well. We have AWA orientation, or new staff orientation today. Mr. Herman is not here. That's where he's at. Working with them this morning. I would encourage you to stop over at the new teacher orientation after this meeting so we can get introduced and meet them. You have a packet of their information on your desk, which is something that Mr. Herman and Mrs. Schwann's put together based on their responses to some questions, so you get to kind of know them a little bit, where they're from and so forth. COVID-19. Obviously, as from our last meeting in June, the data has changed based on what the Lucas County Health Department has shared with us. The Delta variant that is out there, we're told, is easier to be transmitted to individuals who are exposed to it. That's raising their concern in regards to how many positive cases they will have moving forward. Based on our data that's been released on their website, they usually update it either on Monday or Tuesday. Last week is the most recent data that we have. On the 14-day average, it was 12.86 cases per day, which is obviously significantly less than what it was back in early spring, even late winter, which is good news. During our last meeting last week, they did say that the cases were going up. We asked them for specific data relative to ages 5 through 18. They said they would give that to us, but we've not seen it at this time. As of last Tuesday, according to the data that they've shared with us on their website, when we look at the zip codes in our school district, we're at approximately 65% vaccination rate as far as the eligible individuals within our zip codes. And when you looked at that, the previous week it was around 60%. So we've seen an increase, and I think that's been reported on the news. I think yesterday I saw that over the last 5 days, roughly 10,000 people per day had gotten their first dose of the vaccine throughout the state, so that is increasing. We posted a plan on the website. It's been there since last week. That was announced through email to all parents and staff, talking about cleaning protocols and those types of things. That's still available on the website. The mask, that's the biggest concern that I hear from parents and community members. It's for and against them. It's very specific. We have used the same language as the CDC, ODH, and local health department that says that they're recommended indoors by whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. I will have a little bit of difference of a statement than Mrs. Valzone made as far as what I said to her on the phone. We spoke specifically about the CDC federal order on buses. I've spoken to our attorney about this because I was concerned that, do we have to, as a school district, follow a federal order from the CDC as far as wearing masks on buses? And our attorney has told us yes. It's the same language that ODH has used, as well as Ohio School Board Association. You've gotten emails from them saying that we do have to follow that federal CDC requirement because it's an order, it's not a recommendation. And so we will ask our parents and students to wear, and our bus drivers to wear masks while they're on school buses. Universities in the area have announced mask requirements indoors. UT, BGSU, I think Ohio State was the first one in the state to do that, and others are joining in. I just share that with you so that you're aware of that. Most of the area districts in Northwest Ohio, with the exception, I think, of 3 in this area, have the same mask requirements as we do. They're recommended indoors for vaccinated or unvaccinated people at this time. Social distancing, as far as physical distancing and so forth, we try to maintain around 3 feet. There's going to be some places where that can't happen, just to keep individuals safe. We're going to continue to do the cleaning protocols that we utilized last year with cleaning, after school. We're going to clean in between lunches and like we normally do. Hand sanitizer is going to be available throughout the building. There will be seating charts like we've done in the past. We did those before COVID-19. We are required by Ohio Department of Health to still quarantine students. And so we went through a presentation last Thursday with the Lucas County Health Department. They gave us a set of regulations, and then Ohio Department of Health later that night released a set of regulations, which was different in some cases than the Lucas County Health Department. So we were told by the Lucas County Health Department that they would be potentially changing their recommendations. We've not seen any changes yet, but I would assume in the next couple of days we'll get those. Once we have that information, we will share that with parents so they can be aware of what those quarantine regulations will be. At this time, there are no regulations or requirements, there's a few recommendations, but there's no requirements for athletics. So you will see whatever you want to call normalcy after COVID-19 within athletic events and so forth. So we've had, I know on Friday night I was here on campus, we had football having a scrimmage against Whitmer, and then we had the boys soccer program had their alumni game against the alumni. So those things are going on. We've had practices going on and so forth. So I know that my daughter right now, I think, it's something, she's at cheerleading at Monclova, all week long. So there's definitely stuff going on in the district. As far as, COVID-19 and where this all goes, as far as whether there's just recommendations, whether there's requirements, whether there's orders, we will have to wait and see. We just don't know. I appreciate Mrs. Falzone and her comments and others who have provided those to us. Obviously, we are a community very divided on this topic. There are people for and against. I've been accused of being a person who has required masks that has harmed children, and I've been accused of not requiring masks and harming children. I've been told I've been a child abuser because I've required it, and I've been told that I'm going to kill students because I don't require it. So it's all over the board as we move forward. And I think that will continue, unfortunately, even though I believe all of us have a common goal of educating students and seeing their growth. We just have a difference of opinion on how to get there, and unfortunately, our personal views are creating within some very negative comments. I've been very surprised over the summer by some of the content of what I've received in communications, and I hope, as I'll speak about here in a few minutes, that we as a community can come together and talk about what's best for kids in the sense of just educating them. Yeah, we can disagree on masks, we can disagree on what we should do as far as COVID-19, but I'm hoping that we can come together and be here for our students, because I'm going to share next with you, I think it's an opportunity for us to do so. As we talk about the return of school and our opportunity here, last week I was sent a report from Harvard and MIT that the two professors came together and did a report. And they had interviewed students and teachers over the summer and wanted to see how they were doing with the return and what they wanted in the return. And from that report, students, they're most looking forward to that social interaction again, with their teachers, with their peers, and so forth. The parents, according to the report, they want that connection again. They want that connection with their children's teachers and the school and so forth. They also want their kids to go to school and be out of the house, as well as not playing video games and being on their phones as much, which, as a parent, I would agree with. Last year was an extraordinary year. It was difficult for educators across the world, and many of them are wondering how they'll be supported this year, not only by the school district, but by the community and the parents. And what resources will they have available for them to be successful this school year? Because they feel that they need the support of all of us to help their students in their classrooms move forward. And I think that, as we look forward to this next school year, it's a time where we'll need to come together and be supportive of one another. If we don't, our students will suffer. Our students, as I look at this report and I talk to kids and I talk to parents, they want a partnership. They desire a partnership, and I think that partnership is available. It's been available in our community for years, and we've taken advantage of that and been very successful with our working together as one to educate our students. We've learned a lot of lessons over the last year with COVID-19, and we've learned what doesn't work and what does work to be successful in educating our students. I believe that, as we move forward, we need to be there in support of our students, our staff, our educators, our bus drivers, our food service individuals, our custodian, everybody. We need to be there for their support so that they can do their jobs and be successful in not only providing academic growth, but personal growth for our students. Because they're wanting that. They're wanting us to work together for them. They want us as a community to come together and work towards a common goal, which is providing the best educational opportunities we can for them while they're in school. They want to go to sporting events. They want to go to extracurricular events. They want to participate with their friends. We can only do that if we work together to do that. And we've got to put some of our differences aside and do what's best for them moving forward. We all have a choice in this, I believe. And ultimately, we've got to make that choice within ourselves and what do we want to do to move forward. I think we can do it. We've demonstrated it in the past. We've done great things in this district together throughout the years. This is my now 19th year in the district, which is surprising to me to even say. 12th year as superintendent that I'm starting, and I've seen some great things happen. And I think we can do that again if we choose to come together and move forward for students. So that's my update for you today. I know that I'm really looking forward to this year, not only because as superintendent I get to see great things happen in school buildings and extracurricular activities and so forth, but also as a parent. I'm excited for my daughter as a senior to end her career on a positive note and move forward and have some great experiences. And I think that's what all parents are at. They want positive things to happen for their children, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well. And so I'm hoping that we can do that as a community moving forward. Okay, other items. Bus routes, our transportation department has to go through each year, each summer, not only get our buses ready for inspections through the Ohio State Patrol. Once that's done, we have to go through and start setting up bus routes for all of the students in the district, whether they say they want bus routes or not. get those ready for the start of the school year, and then we make adjustments as school year starts. I do believe because of the federal CDC requirements on masks that we will see less bus drivers and we'll see more drivers. I've already asked our principals to start preparing for that, to see more students being dropped off at each individual building. That will cause some more traffic, not only on Finsel, but at each of the 3 primaries. And so we apologize to the community for that but we'll try to do our best like we did last year and make adjustments to alleviate some of that pressure on the roads moving forward.
Can you remind, how many different routes and how many miles we?
So in the morning, just take a typical morning. You have the K through 4 routes, which is roughly 40. Buses are going out throughout the district. You got 77 square miles. They travel, over 3,000 miles total in a day to transport all of our students. So you have 40 routes then, and then go to the 5 through 12 routes. And it's basically the same 40 routes, just covering the high school kids, the campus students. So really 80 total routes in the morning, and the same thing happens in the afternoon. We're transporting not only our students that are coming to our buildings, we're transporting, some parochial students and other students that we're required to transport. So it's hard to say what will happen this year as far as, just like every year, we don't know once we get in and see who's actually going to ride on a continual basis moving forward.
So we don't have that information yet?
We don't know exactly we have the bus routes and we have everybody routed until you get out until you get out and actually do them over a couple of weeks, and then you can kind of solidify who's actually going to ride.
So we haven't asked parents to?
We've tried that in the
declare, I
past.
guess.
And what we found is most parents will say yes, and then we do the routes, and then it's really not accurate. We did that a couple of times, and it just wasn't really accurate data. So we've chosen not to do that again at this time. We have graduation approval for 3 students who finished their requirements over the summer. So we'd ask you approve those. Educational agreements, there are 5 listed there. Our membership with the Chamber of Commerce. I serve on the Chamber of Commerce board and work with them to try to provide benefits to our students. I know that Mrs. Buckenmeyer at the high school has worked with their Chamber of Commerce president and tried to develop some working relationships with them in an effort to do our careers work with our students. We also have an agreement with Midwest Educational Services Center for vision impaired students we have in the district. We have an agreement with Specialty Transportation for services for specific students. We have an agreement with a parent to transport based on an individual situation. And then we have the ProMedica Toledo Hospital contract for athletic training services for this year. So I'd ask that you approve A through D in one motion unless you have questions at this time.
I so move. I'll second.
Pam, Vicki, and Pam. Mrs. Johnson, call the roll.
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
So resignations and retirements in section A, we have a few resignations at this time that came in over the summer. And so you will see then that we're also filling those positions in employment. So item B is employment. And see, we're excited to bring in, like I mentioned, we hired a 1-year person for Waterville as a new teacher to take care of that enrollment increase. We have some food service workers, bus driver, special education aide, cafeteria and playground aide, and a food service worker as well. They're listed. Item C are substitute employees as listed. Item D are volunteers. Item E are limited supplemental contracts. And most of those are athletic related. And item F are supplemental contracts. And I had mentioned, or you had seen in a previous email, or I'm sorry, previous agenda, that we had moved Andy Brungard as a teacher at FT to the high school to fill the dean of students position. That position hadn't been filled in a couple of years, but we're doing it at this time. And it's a part of a whole process to provide more opportunity for the administrators to work with the staff on their professional development needs. And so that I would ask at this time that you approve A through F at one motion unless you have specific questions.
Quick question.
Yes.
How are we on bus drivers this year?
So right now, we have all of our current positions filled. I'm very excited about it. The question will be is how many substitute employees we can have, and that's the biggest concern. Because as a substitute bus driver employee, it's hard enough to get them as permanent employees. But what we have done is, in the last couple of years, is we've had to hire at least one substitute employee as a regular bus driver, and then that person would fill in as positions become available, and if not, then we assign duties as needed, for their hours that they're doing, which would be bus cleaning and other things. And so, that's the concern is, do you have enough subs? You never know when a situation's going to come up where there's a medical leave or something like that, or a resignation, and you just constantly are trying to have at least a handful of subs. With teaching staff, we always have 100 to 150 or so subs for them, and so you always, in all positions, you want to have at least a few subs to fill those, and so we're still working on that. As we continue to do, we've done that for the last couple of years as it's become harder and harder to fill those positions moving forward.
Other questions?
I'll move to approve the personnel positions.
I'll second.
Pam, Troy? We can call the roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
All right, motion passed. All right, moving item 6 is recognition of visitors for any comments for future board meeting concerns. Anyone? Yes? So we note that as a
Yeah, we'll note that. yeah.
request. And yeah. Any other items? No? All right, that's our last item. So item 7 is adjournment. If there's a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Vicki
I'll second.
and Jana. And a roll call.
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The next scheduled meeting is September 13th. Monday will be 6 p.m. We'll back to the evening schedule. So meeting is adjourned. Thank you.